Listen to the Impact Podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Audible, Spotify, Stitcher, and of course, at impactpodcast.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. This is the first edition in 2023, and this is a most special edition because we've got with us today Ryan Birdman Parrott. Welcome to the Impact Podcast for our first edition of this new year.
Thank you so much for having me, brother. I'm super excited about this.
Hey, Ryan, I said this to you off the air, but before we even get going, and our audience is going to learn a lot about you today, thank you for your service and everything you've done before what we're going to be talking about today.
No, it was an honor. You know, it's truly humbled when I hear that because we never thought about anything other than I want to go join the military. So thank you for that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here today. You're a fascinating guy with an amazing history, but even I think a bigger future ahead of you and what you're endeavoring to accomplish. We're going to get into that in a couple minutes. But first, let's go backwards. Where did you grow up, and how did you get interested in becoming a Navy SEAL? Which, of course, that's why I said at the top of the show, thank you for your service. Where's the genesis of Ryan Birdman Parrott?
Yeah, so grew up in Detroit, Michigan. Played ice hockey. It's what you do out there in Michigan. You learn how to walk, you learn how to skate same time. And for me, it was, it's interesting when we start to dissect, guys who make it through the program, whether it's SEAL training or any other special operations, most of them come from broken homes. And it's something interesting that just that information, the way that you receive what's happening in your upbringing creates that adversity and that overcoming adversity. And so I think that was a huge catalyst to helping me get through the program. But my parents divorced when I was 5 years old. And, we moved from house to house, from parents' house to parents' house to grandparents' house. And I never really was able to develop communication skills because I wasn't at a school long enough to make friends. And so that's why I cherish my relationships more than anything that's tangible today is my relationships with people, because we're on this earth to help each other. We're on this earth to share with each other. And minus God and my family, that's everything to me is my relationships. So in middle to high school, I started developing relationships and was playing pretty competitive hockey, and I was failing almost every subject in school. I mean, I have a report card my dad kept, and he sent it to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm out of this. But I mean, F and D and non-complete and all this, just, I use it for speeches. It's hilarious. I was going nowhere.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't care. That was the worst part is I could do the information, I could do the work, I could take the test, but I chose not to. And I didn't care about the outcome. I didn't care about where I was going in life. And so that's a real bad place to be when you're going nowhere. And I was working at Walgreens in the photo department. And that's why I always love to make the joke when I go to just send a resume for fun to a friend. And I'm like, hey, would you hire me? It says Walgreens photo printer, U.S. Navy SEAL sniper. So it's kind of an upgrade. But it was a teacher who was a motivational psychology teacher. He was a Marine in Vietnam. And he came into the classroom one day, and instead of being 100 miles an hour and boisterous and all that, he just looked at the class, he held the American flag, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one thing better than the U.S. Marine Corps, and that's the United States Navy SEALs. And I turned my head and I'm like, what did he just say? Because all he ever talked about was the Marine Corps. And I just couldn't believe it. And he made it sound so fascinating. He was a storyteller. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I stayed after class. I'm like, Mr. Barnes, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. And he just violently laughs in my face. And I'm like, you can't do that. You're my teacher. You can't make fun of me. And he's like, buddy, you're not even passing my class. And it's an elective. How are you going to pass the toughest military training the world has? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And that's why it's so important for people to keep their word today. Because if he would have just said, oh, well, you know what, just good riddance to you, you know, do what you do. That would have been one thing. And my life would have been ultimately not great. But he said, I'm going to get something for you. And the next day when I showed up to class, there was a Reader's Digest magazine sitting on my desk. Talks about the making of an American warrior. This guy named Jeff Wright, who went from the Marine Corps into the Navy to see if he had what it takes to survive. And that told me everything I needed to know. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a glorified Marine. Marines are awesome. They're the best. And this guy got out honorably, went into the Navy to see if he could survive SEAL training. I'm in. I'm sold. And of course, this talk is cheap. It's talk is talk. And so I went back to just being a complete loser where I was not doing anything, no grades. I was just failing everything and didn't care. And 9/11 happened. And I remember when I saw the second tower explode and they said it was a possible terrorist attack, I couldn't make up in my mind how somebody could kill, just absolutely murder that many people. And let alone one person, but just everybody. And I was so angry inside. And that's not the reason that you join the service, not the reason you go to war. But I was so raged that I said, you know what? I certainly can't change what just happened, but maybe I can be a part of the solution. So I left class right then and there when that tower had just fallen. I went to the recruiter station. I said, I don't care what it takes. Get me into the SEAL program. And they said, whoa, slow your horses. You know, you can't just go into the SEALs. And I said, did you see what happened on the TV? I'm in. And so I was too young to join right then and there. I had to wait a few months. And then I would enlist in the delayed entry program in the Navy with no hopes of being a SEAL. Just, I was going to be aviation ordnance. I was going to put bombs in the bottom of jets. And I was going to go try out in boot camp to become a SEAL. And that's how it all started for me.
How old were you then?
I was 18 going on 19.
Now, you had some DNA in you, though. Both your grandfathers, if I'm not mistaken, were both U.S. military veterans.
That's right. One Army, one Navy, both World War II, and just truly the greatest generation of folk. You know, those are the men who every time I'd go home for Christmas, they'd have that American flag floating, and if it was tattered or messed up, Ryan, you go on out there and you go get that flag for me and go put another one up. And it's like, that was a point of contention. Hey, we got to get this done. And so growing up with them as influence and saying these are strong, sturdy men who have values towards our nation and the people within it, that was also another catalyst to helping me make that decision.
That's awesome. So now you're enlisted. How did that go? Was it more than you've ever felt in terms of challenge than your entire life prior to that?
So as far as boot camp for the Navy, there wasn't a challenge for me per se. I mean, a lot of people get homesick. I didn't, because I knew that I was on a path. You know, I didn't just do it. I didn't want to get away from home. I wanted to go further my life and better my life. I thought that boot camp was really unique because I got to see boot camp hasn't really changed since World War II. It still has the same feel. It still has the same smell. Some of the what they would be called the barracks, but they call them ships in the Navy. But they're still barracks. Right. Old. They're run down, and it's a training command. So you go there. What I liked about the Navy's boot camp is that it taught you about the traditions of the United States Navy. That was something that everybody had to learn. So it fortifies you into a one-unit group right out of the gate. Everybody. My grandfather went through the same teachings I did. That's what's really cool. Folding my underwear every single day and ironing T-shirts and that, not my favorite, but it is what it is. Simplifying your life. When you get to boot camp, they strip you down, they have you take everything off and you put it in a box, and then they ship that back home. So you have no possessions. And for the next 9 weeks, you will live out of, you have your rack, your bed, and then you have two little drawers. And those are the contents of your life. And what you realize is that you don't need anything to truly thrive. It's use what you have to your advantage. And that was so nice because cell phones weren't a thing.
Right.
So that was a beauty too. There was no social media, and it's just purely this greatness of be present, be in the moment, and learn the traditions. I felt like it went backwards though physically in boot camp training.
Really?
In SEAL training, they drop you down, you have to do 50 push-ups. In boot camp, they drop you down, you do 10. So I would find myself after hours when everybody go to sleep working out in the back of the barracks because I felt like I was going backwards. I remember it was the second week of boot camp. There was an instructor that came around and said, who wants to sign up for special activities or try out for special activities? So I thought, I'm in, that's me, right? I want to do that. And I wasn't sure if that even meant SEALs, but he goes, oh, really? You think you're going to be a SEAL? And I was like, okay, I at least made the right call. So I went and tried out, and you do an academic test, you do a physical fitness test, you do an oral review board, and then I think there's a psych test. And I didn't get any information after that. And all they said to me after I'd taken that battery of tests was, you can show up now and train with us every morning, and you have to get up 2 hours earlier than everybody in boot camp. And that's it. No guarantees, no nothing. Just show up if you want, and you can train. And that's it. So I would do that. And getting closer to the end of boot camp, I had no word. Nobody had told me anything, and I'm starting to freak out. Like, if I don't get anybody to talk to me, and I don't even know who to talk to, I'm going into the fleet, and that's not what I signed up for. Right. Nothing against the fleet, but that just wasn't my path that I wanted. So it was the second to last week of boot camp. The senior chief was the first Navy SEAL I ever met, Senior Chief Fitzhenry. He looked like a SEAL, and he talked like one. Very deep voice, just kind of scary, terrifying. He came into our boot camp division and like, Parrott. So I run over to him. I knew that voice, and I stood at attention. He's like, still want to be a frogman? It's like, more than ever, Senior Chief. And he goes, well, we were looking at all your tests, and you did good on all of them, but we're just not sure that you're the quality of candidate we're looking for. And into my mind, I'm thinking to myself as he says that, well, of course I'm not. Why would I? I was a complete screw up, failing every subject in school, working a deadbeat job, going nowhere in life. Why would I be your candidate? So that's running through my brain as he's talking. And then he looks over to the rest of the guys in boot camp, and they're very lethargic. You know, at the end of it, nobody's really doing anything. He looks back at me and he kind of smiles and he goes, just kidding, welcome to Buds. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much.
Wow.
And it was so mind-bending to me to know that I was going to be in SEAL training at just being 20 years old. Wow. That I had gone from failing a year and a half earlier, failing every subject in school, having no path, going nowhere in life, to now I just got accepted to the toughest military training the Navy has to provide. Oh my gosh, this is an amazing step. So that was pretty emotional.
Holy Toledo. And like, you know, for non-veterans like me, frame it up a little bit. 100, you know, out of 100% of people who go into Navy SEAL training, what percentage don't even make it?
Sure. So you have now everybody around the country that wants to go be a SEAL competing. And they have to score a certain percentage in a test before they even get into boot camp. And so what'll happen to guarantee their contract. And so they're competing against everybody. When I went through, they didn't have that. It was you try out. And then it's a battery of things. You have to pass the academics and the physicality. And they also have to like you because they're going to be working with you. So it's a personality thing and a good old boy club. So you have to really fit the mold there. And honesty for me was the big thing. Like they asked me a couple of questions about honesty and integrity. And I was like, hey, I'm just here. You give me a mission and you let me go wild on it. I'm going to give you everything I got because that's all I got. And like, okay, we can deal with this guy. Because this is one thing that I know in life to be true is I will take anybody and put them on my team who has an incredible attitude and is just a mediocre athlete or a mediocre worker, because I can help you and I can train you to become excellent at your profession or your skill set. What I can't do is change your attitude. So if you got a good attitude, I'm going to work with you, as opposed to somebody who is a hot shot who has a terrible attitude. So
Right.
that's what they really look for. And so we started out, and I mean, when we got the buzz, there was about 200, I think it was like 186 guys that showed up. And you're talking about all that had passed that curriculum at the highest level. So they're all athletes, they're all 100 miles an hour, they're hungry. So you got the top 1%
Right.
of the Navy, top 1% of the world that are there, and about 85% of them quit and go away.
85 fall out of 85. That is incredible. So it's not only the best versus the best, but then only about 15% graduate. Incredible. Never even heard that stat before. So how long does it take you to make it through Navy SEAL training? And what level for you? Was this an all-out moment? Like, was this the toughest, by far the toughest thing you ever did? And what got you through?
Toughest at that point, because you're a kid, I was 20 years old. So by far the toughest thing I'd ever done.
Right.
But for me, it was different. It was so unique. I had so much fun in SEAL training because from the information that I could get publicly, I was now living it. I was at that training command that they had started with. I saw the same. I was running on the grinder where they were in those pictures. I'm there, I'm present, and I was accepted. So I'm grateful, but I'm also living this. And SEAL training is very unique because you have your standards. You have to do your 4-mile time run every couple of days in soft sanded boots. You have your 2 nautical mile ocean swims. You have your O courses. You have some log PT and some boat IBS cert passage. So you have some variable or some standards, but then you have all these other activities that are just unique and different that you have to pass, fail as well. And so you're achieving something every day. You're trying new things every single day. Nothing's easy, but you're around people that want to be there too. And the ones that don't want to be there show themselves quickly and they leave, they exit quickly. So within the first 5 weeks of SEAL training, everybody who needs to go away is gone. And from there, it's a 6-month program just for SEAL training, or BUDS. We call it Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. After that 5 weeks, we know really the package that we're going to be working with. And then you become a brotherhood. You become your own fortified unit. So that's really cool. But for me, it was just the daily routine. I mean, San Diego, you're paying me to live in San Diego in this weather on the ocean. Oh my gosh, minus getting eaten by a shark, I'm in.
For those who've just joined us, either via video or on the podcast, we've got Ryan Birdman Parrott with us today. He's a U.S. Navy SEAL veteran, but we're going to be talking about his great new venture, AmericanExtreme.com. AmericanExtreme.com, to learn more about Ryan and what he's going to be talking about, he's going to be doing in February. So go look that up right now. Ryan, you get through being a Navy, you get through BUD training here 6 months in. Now, let's go back a little bit. What is mom and dad saying about all this? And are your grandfathers still alive? Did they get to live to see you do this?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that one, because that was a very meaningful thing for me. So my mom, when I told my parents originally that I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, my mom, she's super supportive. So she's like, you just go do it, honey. That sounds great. Has no idea what it means. My dad ended up going to the original America Online, the dial-up, went online, and he said, do you have any idea what attrition rate there is? And I said, well, I don't even know what that word means. So is that good? Is that bad? What is this?
It's good.
And so he was nervous, and he's kind of, he's one of those guys who won't walk under a ladder. So he's like, no, I don't want to get too excited because I know that the odds are truly against you. He was supportive, but he was just nervous. And I would be the same way if my children went through.
Sure.
You want them to succeed so well, but the odds are completely against them. So for me, but I had the full support. I mean, we had to call. We didn't have cell phones, so I had to call my parents on 1-800-COLLECT, or use the payphone every week in SEAL training just to let them know, hey, I'm still here. I'm still going. This is great. Making the phone call to them after Hell Week was everything for me. It was the most powerful phone call I've ever made in my life.
That's great.
And it was just telling my parents, Hell Week is the toughest training we have in SEAL training. And it weeds out quickly. We lost 60 guys the first night. It was just so fast and so hard and so miserable. And I told my parents that I was going to give it everything I had. It was the first time, and really the only time, that I had truly given every bit of everything I had to see if you truly do that, does it work? And the answer is yes. If you give everything that God has given you, then you will succeed. And so I went through 5.5 days of being cold, wet, tired, and miserable with no sleep. And it was brutal. And at the end of it, I mean, there was just a handful of us standing there to graduate Howick. And the only thing I could think about was getting to that phone to make those calls. And when I made the calls, it was the most emotional thing in the world, because I said, thank you for always sticking by me. Because could have they could have just said, to hell with it, right? You know, you're failing every subject in school for years and years and years. But no, I just said, you stuck with me through all these times. And as a result of that, I just made it through Hell Week, and I'm going to be a United States Navy SEAL. And that was everything.
Were your two grandfathers also alive at this point as well?
Oh, yes. And so the beauty is,
tell me about those calls.
I didn't get to make those calls because I had to get back to training.
Oh, got it.
But the kind of just fast forward for a second is, I was actually, later on, I would become a SEAL sniper, and I ended up going through sniper school. All of my teammates that were all snipers and I, when we were graduating, we decided to drive up to Michigan, and my family came out, and both of my granddads got to see my entire SEAL sniper buddies, and we took a picture. So, and they both had their SEAL Trident hats on. So it was really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. That is awesome. So now you get out, it's the 6 months is over. Talk about a little bit about your experience in deployments. I know you had, I believe, 3 deployments. Talk a little bit about that. How did the real service that you did with the Navy SEALs go, and how did you even become part of SEAL Team 7? Because that's next level, Navy SEAL stuff. That's not just Navy SEAL, which is the most elite, group of people in the world in terms of military, but you became part of SEAL Team 7. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I always like to make the joke, because I have friends over at what they call SEAL Team 6 or development group. The higher the number of the team, the better the team. And I was at Team 7. So, hey. That's not actually the fact.
Is that the highest? Is that the highest level? Is that?
No, there's no.
Oh, okay.
It's all a joke to give them. It's just a joke for them. But
okay,
honestly, so typically what will happen is you get to choose your coast. You want to go West or East Coast when you graduate. After BUD/S, you get to go to another finishing school, which is called SQT, SEAL Qualification Training. So another 6 months of training, and then you'll go to Kodiak, Alaska for cold weather survival training, and then you go to SEER and jump school, and then you come back, and then you show up to your command. Usually you get to go to the team that's coming back from deployment, and you get to choose your coast. But they do an NFL draft. So they'll take your information and your picture, and they put it at the command, and they follow all the information for how you did during all of BUD/S and SQT. And then all the head shed gets together to say, I want this guy. No, this guy's a turd, whatever it is. And so I was hand selected by my platoon, SEAL Team 7 Alpha Platoon, because of what I apparently offered them based off of my background.
Right.
And so it's nice, because you're not just there like, oh, we're just going to take you. They hand selected me. So I was grateful. The unique thing about SEAL Team 7, and there's not a team that best, there's a lot of talk about specific teams doing specific missions, but it really is about the tribe of the team. It's about the culture, right? And so what had happened was SEAL Team 7 had just been created, and they had only done 1 deployment. But what they did is they pulled senior guys from SEAL Team 1, 3, and 5 to build this team up. And so when they pulled all these unique dudes out, now you're getting this incredible leadership. You're getting all these incredible operators together in one roof to develop the command. And that's why it was so unique, because they were hungry, they were motivated, they want to work hard. It was an open playing field to develop. And so it was the newest SEAL team along with Team 10. And I was just fortunate enough during that time frame to get into SEAL Team 7 right out of the gate. And what a career. I mean, what a career.
What year was that? What was that? What year was
I got to SEAL Team 7 in 2000, the early part of 2004.
Got it.
And then we started our ULT, our workup, and So we form up as a platoon. When I had gotten to the SEAL team, the guys had just gotten back from their first deployment as SEAL Team 7.
Got it.
So I just missed being a plank owner over there.
All right. So talk about your first, you had 3 deployments. Talk about your deployments and some of the things that started to then, change your life a little bit on some of these deployments. I know you had a big incident when you were in the Humvee. So why don't you go through that a little bit?
Sure. So, showing up to the command is very scary because you're brand new again. You just went through all that training and now you're a new guy again. You don't know anything. Now you got to learn to be an operator. Oh. And you got to learn quick. And they watch your moves. They watch everything about you. We knew that we were going overseas, and the goal for the platoons is we compete against every other platoon at the SEAL team for the hottest spot overseas. And how do we do that? By how well we train under the instruction. The instructors relay the information and rate each platoon. And at the end of all of it, they compile all the scores and the information. And they say, well, this platoon has really just been well-rounded. These guys deserve to get their pick. And we're going to shoot for the hottest spot. We want to go to the place where the worst terrorists, the biggest action is, the craziest time. That's what we want to go to because we want to fight.
Right.
So I was very fortunate. Went over to Alpha Platoon. Alpha Platoon got number 1. So we got the hottest spot. We went to Habbaniyah in 2005 with the option to cross between Habbaniyah and Ramadi. And Ramadi at that time was becoming the safe haven, the bedding ground for like the old Fallujah. It was bad. And it was only, I think they said it was like maybe 15 or 20% occupied by native forces. So it was really cowboys and Indians go in there, see what's going on, try to disrupt the network, the mechanism, whatever it is. So yeah, I remember the first time we drove through Ramadi, things exploding everywhere. And you're like, whoa, this is a real reality check. As a new guy, you don't get to do a whole lot in the beginning. So you don't get to lead the charge and lead the guys into shooting, going through doors and that. And you don't get to do any of that stuff. You're really in the back of the train and observing and getting ready in case you need to be actionable, but you're really more in an observation because you're brand new. We were about 3 months into deployment. We had knocked out quite a bit of operations at that point, a lot of what they call direct action missions. So going after a specific target and either taking them back with us or killing them. And at about the 3-month marker, we were coming back from a mission and we were driving down the road, Route Michigan, the most dangerous road in Iraq. And I'm from Michigan, so wouldn't that be unique? And we hit a roadside bomb and it exploded so fast. It was the most violent, and it wasn't even terrifying at that moment because it was so fast. My brain couldn't comprehend what just happened. But all I knew is that I was ejected from the turret into the air. And that's how I got my nickname later on was Birdman, is because I went flying, which was great. That's a good upgrade. I was like, all right, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and you had the perfect last name for it. Let's just be honest.
Perfect last name for it, yes. But what came from that was I watched, I was hurt pretty bad. And I saw teammates bleeding out pretty bad. And I had to jump on them and help. And our team worked so cohesively to help get everybody back together. And it was so unique. We worked so well together. We cared about each other so much. Everybody lived. We worked on each other and got everybody back to the hospital and everybody lived. So a horrific time, but ultimately a great outcome.
Ryan, okay, let's go back now. When you were deployed prior to this horrific accident, how much is obviously non-veterans like me and so many others that get to enjoy the beauty and the freedom that we get to enjoy because of heroes like you and all of your colleagues in the military. How much is the reality of being in wartime in the situations that you were put in post SEAL Team 7 training versus the glorified versions we see on film, and versus what you were expecting as a SEAL Team 7 trainee? So on a 3-part basis, you're in there, you're in the reality of it now, you remember the training part, and of course, we all know the glorified film versions. How different how nightmarish was the reality versus what your training prepared you for? And was it much more than you expected? Or was it pretty much where you trained up for what to expect? And was it what you expected when you got there prior to the Humvee accident?
Great question. So you can train. I mean, we train a lot. We train very, very hard. And the reason for that is so that when we get to a place where we're measured up against, we at least can counter that issue. But ultimately, you can only be so prepared for an ambush. And that's what happens in war most of the time is it's ambush. Tactics, it's ambush. So when you get into country, the first thing you don't realize is you're breathing in this, sand that's all just floats in the air. It's like powder. And so you're breathing this in constantly. So you're destroying your lungs and it's just nasty and it's 1,000 degrees outside and it smells horrible because their irrigation system is terrible. And so sewage just runs amok through the cities. And there's nobody doing any command and control of cleanup because it's a war. So it's been demolished and you see the aftermath of what's already been done. And so my reality check right out of the gate was seeing these children playing in like rubble in big old piles of trash and like searching through the trash to find a soccer ball or something. And you look at that as, a young child, that's what their upbringing is. And that's as good as it's going to get for them. It's so sad. And then you look at some of the other people that just couldn't get out of country. And so they're stuck with this scenario and there's a war happening real time around them. So that's their lifestyle. So there's that side of the house. The other side of the house is, yes, there are bad people. They're evil and they care less about your life. They want to kill you. They want to end you and they could care less about their own to the tune of they'll kill themselves and their family too. And that was so shocking for me. I mean, I was 21 years old, we made the joke I was a Navy SEAL before I could legally drink a beer. True. And so you're seeing this at a young age when I don't even consider a 21-year-old an adult. I think they're still
You're a kid. You're a kid.
Yep. So you look at this stuff though, and that really helped humble me to a point of really understanding the greater understanding of life. And like when I come back and there's somebody arguing over silly stuff, it's just pointless. Like there's no reason for that because the reality is we live in this country, which is an amazing country, and we have the opportunities to do what we do and go anywhere and buy anything and do all this stuff without that fear where this is their everyday constant and they don't even understand what this has to offer here. So it really, it slows you down and it humbles you. The chaos, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes you'll be doing work for weeks on end where you're just operating, and you're getting shot at half the time or most of the time. And, you're in ticks, which are gunfights. And then you have explosions. IEDs were so prevalent in Iraq in the beginning of the war, which is a coward way of fighting, but that's what they do. And so there's all these elements where when you're in a gunfight, you're ambushed. And when you're with an IED, you're completely ambushed, but you're not actually fighting anything. So your element, your mind is always on red alert, and so that's trying to come down off of that. That's why it's so difficult to get back from overseas and then move back into a family setting, move back into a peaceful setting, because you just lived super vigilant 100 miles an hour. And now you're supposed to just flip the switch and turn it off. We get good at compartmentalizing things, but compartmentalizing is only to compartmentalize to finish the mission. It should not be to compartmentalize forever so that the stuff in your bag ends up exploding on you and you fall a victim to it, and then you can't get out of your own way.
Right.
And so it was interesting. After getting blown up, I didn't really do many missions as like a gunfighter per se. I was more of the observation role as a new guy, but I got to go into some houses, which was cool. Just grateful to be part of the team in there. After the explosion, I was sent home with the rest of the crew to heal up. And then when I got redeployed after I healed up I went up to the Philippine Islands for that duration of the deployment, which was nice. It was a nice dial down. And then from there, I said to myself that I wanted to be better of an operator. I wanted to be a more efficient operator. And for me, we're gunfighters. So could I in fact be a better gunfighter? Well, yes. Maybe I should try out for sniper school. So I put my hand in the hat to say, I want to be a sniper because it's the hardest school we have. I think it's stressful and it's technical. And so I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to challenge myself. And I was very blessed to make it through sniper school and become a sniper and a team lead sniper to run our snipers.
Wow. And were you deployed post that, or what happened in your military career post sniper school?
So I would deploy 2 more times to Iraq after getting blown up, and both as a sniper. One, I was a team leader, and so I got to carry the sniper capability, but I was more of a leading the guys type scenario for combat operations and being an assaulter. I also deployed to Lebanon too, a small deployment to teach our counterpart over there, which was really, really unique, really cool to see. Lebanon's a beautiful place if you haven't been.
Yeah.
It's a diamond in the rough. But yes, a lot of operations, nothing more than anybody else. And definitely I was not on anything that's so significant that, people say, oh, you should write a book about it. I did my time. I think I offered value to the team. I love the brotherhood. It was just everything. You eat, sleep, and breathe the brotherhood. I don't think it's the best place for a wife and kids. That's why I chose to stay single for my career, because I felt like I could just dedicate myself and not have anything backside so that I was having any stressors. But I did 8 years in the service, and I thought every moment of it was wonderful.
What year did you leave the service?
So I went into the service in 2002. I got out in 2010.
Let's go back. You're recovering from the Humvee accident. The Humvee explosion, not an accident. How long did it take you to heal up? And I understand a lot of the injuries, besides the mental and emotional injuries, were burns. Can you share a little bit about recovering from the Humvee explosion and some of your injuries and some of your colleagues' injuries, but got you starting thinking about burn trauma and things of that such?
Certainly. So I wasn't fully healed up when I redeployed, and that's just how it goes. Like, there's nothing worse than being away from your team.
Right.
I don't care how bad I am. It's just, as long as I'm there, I'm good.
They're your family.
So I found a loophole because I wanted to get back overseas, and they were like, "You're not going anywhere." Okay. How do I get back overseas? They're like, "You're not going anywhere." I'm like, "Okay." And then I found out that there was this, like, a UAV. It was like a drone school, and it was a short school, like 2 weeks, and they needed the capability overseas. And so I said, well, can I go to drone school then? Because they need the capability. And apparently that capability supersedes my health in the platoon. And so it was a loophole to go 2 weeks to the school, go overseas. I threw the plane up. I crashed it right away. It was the last time I flew a plane, and I was back overseas with my dad. It was great.
Wow.
To your question, though, for the healing portion of it. So, I mean, it took my burns, 6-7 months to fully heal up to where I wasn't really noticeable anymore. When I get suntans now, you can see the burns. I was very lucky where they were superficial burns, first, second degree. A lot of the guys in the Hummer were worse off at third degree, which is full thickness of the skin. Needed a lot more attention. We had shrapnel through the cockpit that, hit us all. My recovery time really 6-7 months fully, but in the hospital short term. And then I was out and was recovering at home. And that's, the physical side, it is what it is, but the mental side, the emotional side, that's the kicker, because it didn't hit me right then and there. And it certainly didn't hit me during my career until the very end. And then aftermath, that's when it really started to get a hold of me.
Ryan, your history is, again, more than inspirational. And again, I hear everything that you've done and during your military service. And again, thank you for your service. There's so few heroes in this great country. All of you deserve to be thanked every day by everyone that you come in touch with. But you've done a lot since you've gotten out of the military. And that's the real today, what I want to share with our audience, besides your great history. I want you to get into a little bit talking about why and how you established Sons of the Flag, Bird's Eye View Project, Human Performance Project, and American Extreme. I know it's a lot, but it's a new year, and these are very important topics that I really wish you could share with our audience? And let's start a little bit chronologically. Let's go back to around 2012 and Sons of the Flag, and how and why you started Sons of the Flag.
Yeah, so Sons of the Flag, when you get out of the service, and this is something I tell a lot of vets today, and it's just in general, people who have been doing something for a career. Like if tomorrow you decided to pack up your entire office, say I'm done, and I'm, or for some reason I just hit my span and I've got to go home,
I'm out.
You're going to have some troubles no matter what, unless you absolutely hate what you're doing and you just know you have to get out.
Right.
Leaving something is tough. So for me, when I got out, I moved to Dallas, Texas. I was supposed to take a well-paying, super high-level job, and everything was set out, and it didn't happen. So I found myself in this precarious position where I had no funding coming in. I didn't know anybody out here in Dallas, and I had just given up a career that was with some of the greatest people in the world. And I was rocked. And better thing for me to do, because I didn't want to hurt anybody but myself, is just drink. So I just turned to the bottle and started drinking. And I realized quickly though that it didn't get me anywhere. It's just one of those things where,
well, let's pause there. How common is that? How common is the feeling of being lost with military veterans that come home? They didn't have any, they don't, and they feel lost, and they turn to something that's going to have a negative consequence: drinking, drugging, or even other things. How common do you feel that is?
Oh, it's extraordinarily common. It's just the same thing as a pro athlete, right? When they can't play anymore, I don't want to be a commentator. I want to be on the field with the guys or whatever it is. And
right,
it's tough. And it's tough because it's not even about the mission. It's about the men. And when you don't have that camaraderie every single day where you can completely be transparent and you can be yourself. That was the thing that was unique about me, is I was a skateboarder. A lot of these guys were triathletes, or they were like to work out hard, and gunfighters and all this stuff. And I'm the skateboarder who wears skate shoes, and they accepted me for who I was as long as I did my job. And that's how it should be.
Right.
You be you, I'm going to be me, perform to your highest level. And I'll know if you're not, but if you're doing that, do your thing. And I even got a bunch of my guys to go skateboarding with me. That was funny. I wish I had a camera back then, because just seeing them eat crap on the ground I was dying laughing. Like, these hardcore operators are falling all over the place. Anyway, so transition for me was difficult, as it is for many people. And there's ways that we could get around it, which we could talk about on a future podcast.
Right.
For me, Sons of the Flag just was an opportunity that popped up out of nowhere, and because you got to seek these things. I was yearning for something. I wanted to do something for the greater good. I wanted to do something for our community, and I just didn't know how. And I wanted to be a part of something. I met an Army Ranger who was severely disfigured from an IED, and looking at his burns and the injury and seeing like that could have been me. Oh my gosh! And I said, "What are they doing for you guys today?" And he said, "Look at me." I was like, "Yeah, I'm looking." And he said, "This is as good as it gets, buddy. I've been through 3 dozen surgeries. This is as good as it gets for me." And I was like, "That's bull crap." So I went home and I studied all night long, and I seriously could not find anything open source to give him, because my idea was, I'm going to find something. We're going to go ask a few people for some dollars. We're going to raise some capital. We're going to get him through this treatment. We're going to get him on his way. Wasn't there.
Wow.
So I called him the next day and said, "Dude, I struck out. So if I were to start something on your behalf, would you join me?" And he goes, "Brother, I'm in." And that was the birth of Sons of the Flag. Just this mom and pop shop charity, just to find this one individual answers. His name was Captain Sam Brown, and to get him on his way. And what I did not realize is that we were standing on this tip of the iceberg that hadn't been touched since Vietnam. And we released the information out about who we were, raised a couple dollars the first year, really mom and pop shop. And then I got reached out to by a firefighter from DC who said, "I love what you're doing. I have 3 boys in the military, and I'm a career firefighter in DC. I would love if you would expand your horizons to the fire community, and I'd like to be your team leader in DC." Well, I was like, wow, that was absolutely a fit. And my grandfather, after World War II, was a firefighter for 30 years in Detroit. So I'm like, of course we're going fire, but we just weren't ready, but we have to act on this. So now we have a team leader running a chapter in DC, and I don't even know what we're doing as an organization. And then it started to, just spread like wildfire through the community of fire. We were asked to go do the keynote speech at all the big fire conferences, published in all the big manuals, and then it started to spread. And so the idea was, let's create a team, a task force around the country where that team leader can go gain us access to the burn unit so we can establish a relationship, find out their capitals needs list, and then go and start an event there, raise capital, keep the money local, help them with their needs, get them on their way. And so that started to grow to where we're in 38 states now, and we're 10 years old, and we've got 14 partnered burn units. And the idea for us was to break it into two programs that were meaningful. One, how do we help the patient? How do we help them recover correctly with real surgery from reconstructive surgeons? So now when anybody goes to Sons of the Flag, if you're a burn patient, come to us. You're our family. You've got a voice with us, and we're going to help direct you to the best surgeons in the country so that you can get the surgery that you need to get you on your way. The other side to it is, and this doesn't go for veteran and first responder only, it goes for everybody in the United States of America, pediatric to adult, civilian, military, first responder. We cover down on everybody. A burn is a burn. The other side to it is most of our reconstructive burn surgeons are older. So what's going to happen? There's going to be a mass exodus. So when they start retiring at that cyclic rate, we're in trouble because there's only about 300 accredited burn surgeons nationwide.
Wow.
So our idea was, okay, we got to put together a scholarship program. And so we now fund doctors in the residency to become burn reconstructive fellows, where we scholarship them for a year. They go through their burn training, and then they become a burn surgeon. And right now we fund 50% of all new burn surgeons in the nation. And within the next 5 years, we're going to own that completely to the United States. So that way people know, go to Sons of the Flag if you want to become a burn surgeon.
Ryan, I know we're here today. We're going to be talking about what you're going to be doing in February. And for our listeners and viewers to find Ryan and what he's doing in February, this amazing journey, you can go to americanextreme.com. But before we get talking about what you're doing there, give a shout out for the URL for Sons of the Flag, please, so people can find you there that need help or want to support or just get involved and support that great organization that you and others have created and run today.
Yes, absolutely. If you're a burn survivor, if you've got a family member that's been burned, if you are somebody who wants to support an event or just be a part of something, go check out sonsoftheflag.org. It's as simple as that.
Sonsoftheflag.org. I love it. Then you also went on to found the Bird's Eye View Project. Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So in high level, I always looked at one charity doesn't change the world. And so we all need to work together. And a lot of people don't want to do that. And so for our idea was, how can we work with other different, not just burns, but how can we work with different veteran and first responder causes so that if you took that patient and dropped them in the epicenter, now they're getting attacked from multiple different causes to truly and holistically help them out. So I have an amputation, I have a burn, I have this, I have a place to go for each one of them, and they've been vetted. So that's what Bird's Eye View was, is to vet these organizations and then partner with them so that we could go out and do two big fundraisers a year, raise the capital, spread the awareness about these causes, and then deploy the money, which was a secondary thing, but deploy money to these causes to continue to help patients. The idea from Bird's Eye View Project came from me trying to take what I love and I'm passionate about with something that makes me whole and parlay them into something that I could do. And so that's extreme sports for extreme needs. If I go do crazy things, which we're going to talk about in a second, can we get people to follow? And if people were truly engaged because they're like, oh, Birdman's going to just about kill himself here, I'm going to watch that. Oh, and by the way, he just asked for a simple $5 donation to support these causes right here. I can do that. Now that money gets deployed, we're moving things forward. And so that's what Bird's Eye View became, as a consortium. Yeah.
And if that's not enough, you went on to write a book called Sons of the Flag, Real Accounts from the Last 100 Years of American Service. Share a little bit about that.
I'm always smitten by, there's one thing that I feel is missing in a lot of these books, and that's why. So like a lot of people talk about what, and what's very interesting, but what only lasts for so long. It's the why that drives you to do it forever. And so I wanted to go answer that question, but when I went to go write it, I'm like, my God, am I a hypocrite? Because I'm answering for just myself, But if I answer this for every single veteran that's ever served in the United States and in the world forever, and I'm saying this is the why, I could be completely wrong. So I went and recruited a veteran from every war, from World War II to present day. And I sent this back in chronological order from present day all the way to World War II. And I asked them their why. So I narrate the book, and each one of them have their chapter where they get to discuss their why of service.
What a great.
And I'm not going to give anything away, but it's very unique how it all seems to follow suit all the way through.
I assume that's on Amazon and all other great platforms that you can buy books.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sons of the Flag, real accounts from the last 100 years of American service. Unbelievable. I mean, for most people, and you still look like you could be, I mean, listen, you still look so young. I mean, to have all that, that's a career or two, what you've already done, Ryan. Now we're going to move on to why I asked you to come on the show. The Impact Podcast to talk about the Human Performance Project and what you're doing with American Extreme. What was the impetus to create the Human Performance Project and the 7-day challenge event that is just incredibly exciting, but incredibly challenging as well, obviously.
Yeah. So it's amazing that we're having this talk right now, because I started this specifically for one person, for one reason, as I usually do, because I see a problem and a need and I want to fix it. This is crazy. So I got a call in 2019 that my sniper partner killed himself. And it was a shot through the heart that it's one of those things that you can't recover from. David was not just our platoon mate. He wasn't just my sniper partner. He was our platoon's true north. He was the guy that we could go to, who always had a smile on his face, who always had the right answer, who was always the good dude. And I lost my swagger when he took his life. And today, I know this podcast is going to be aired in a few days after, but today we're filming is January 2nd. Today, 4 years ago, he took his life.
Wow.
So
this is a blessing then that this worked out. You and I didn't plan it this way. You and I just have been in contact the last couple of weeks. So it's truly an honor in his memory to be taping this today and being able to get the word out about his great life and your great life and all of your colleagues and what you guys do for all of us in this country for freedom. And talk a little bit about those suicide, because it doesn't get enough attention in this country. It's still in so many ways a taboo subject, and suicide among veterans. I mean, it's so unpredictable. Or talk a little bit about this.
I've seen two sides of this, because we've constantly tried to think about how do you get to that place? And I haven't had that feeling, but I still have a massive heart for it. And I think there's two sides of it. One is getting to a place in life where you feel like you offer zero value to the world, where they're hopeless. And then the other side to it is truly the physiological brain, the components of what we do, from the blast wounds and all that stuff, for concussions, that send you down a different path where you might not be thinking correctly because your brain is at its ultimate end and it's letting you know. So there's many different things that are a catalyst to, and the problem is we don't have a direct answer on here's the reason. But I do know this. They did a study, it was in 2001, where they tried to bring some knowledge to the numbers. And what they said was that since 9/11, the two wars, since 9/11, we have lost roughly 7,500 active duty military killed in combat and killed in training. 7,500. Since 9/11, same time frame, just over 30,000 have committed suicide. So you look at these numbers and it's just it's staggering, and it's just not being done. There's not enough being done about it. And I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it. I've lost too many teammates to suicide. And I'm so tired of hearing these things and not doing anything. I don't want to be the guy sitting there anymore saying, That just sucks. And feeling bad when I could be doing something to move these things forward. And again, I go back to I'm no saint, and I'm not some healer, or I'm a scientist where I can fix anything. I just know that when I directionally challenge my efforts, I can get stuff done. And if I can put a team together who feel the same way, we're going to go crush the mission. And so that's exactly what we've done here. Is I have started a for-profit company called American Extreme, so that I don't have to put the burden on all the overhead for the things that we have to do in the future for our charities. But we really rely on extreme sports. We do high level, high octane things. We make documentaries. We host crazy events, both that people can participate in. And then we study and look at human physiology from a human performance level. So my idea for this is right after David, I got the call about David Metcalf, who is a legend, David R. Metcalf. I asked myself the question, why is this happening? And my thesis would become, I think it's more than just the brain. I think it's physiological as a whole. If you ask somebody to go do a bicep curl and go do 10 of them, sure, they're going to get 10 bicep curls in, and then they're going to feel a little bit tired. Ask them to go do 50. They're going to be smoked. Ask them to go do 1,000. Their body will not work anymore. And that's exactly what we're asking these soldiers, these first responders to do, is we are taxing them because they are willing to do it day in and day out because they are worried about their reputation, or they just want to perform to the highest level, and they will take themselves past fatigue into complete exhaustion because it's about mission. Well, after 20 years of doing that without rebooting their body ever, you wonder why they're getting out with such catastrophic issues. And so I believe there is a function of the military that is purely brain related, from concussions and blast wounds and TBIs, our traumatic brain injuries, that are what is causing a number of these suicides, but not all. The other sides of the house, and I look at this purely from looking at the the first responder community, firefighters are not getting traumatic brain injuries like the military would, yet they are taking their life at a cyclic rate. But they're doing the same type of environment job, right? They're still being asked and tasked every single third day to go crush themselves, go train, go run on these calls, go see horrific things. And so it all is a combination of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And if we're not really focusing on those pillars of their house and making sure that those pillars are completely even so that they can put the house on top of it, or that nice top on it, they're always going to have that problem. And so my vision was, if we started to study physiology and then take it all the way back to the brass tacks base level again, to introduce this information back into a guy's mind. I don't care that you can run 100 miles or you can do this. What if I were to start day one and say, today I want you to go achieve running 1 mile at a nice slow pace. And then we're going to think about your fueling after that. And then we're going to think about your hydration after that. And then we're going to talk about your sleep tonight. And then over time, we're going to start building in just the basics so that you are now building your foundation again. And then you can put whatever home you want on top of it once you've gotten to homeostasis. So then the idea behind that would say, I want to do a physiological project where I can bring in scientists and researchers, and then performance athletes, veterans, active duty, special operations, and the subject matter experts to look at physiology and put together a study, so then we can then develop a manual that a 14-year-old child could pick up. Because it's not just about the broken veteran, the first responder. It's about the kid who's told that McDonald's is an easy access every single day, and candy's a better option, or candy's being fed at school and we don't even know as parents. What if we gave the kids the option to understand how to live with true north in mind, to homeostasis? I'm getting into sports. I'm 14. Everybody wants to play football and soccer and all this stuff. How do I do it right? What am I putting into my body? And how can I do it where I'm 14 and I can't afford anything? Can I do it cost effective? Can I do it with just myself? And so building a manual that's built for a 14-year-old child is also built for a military person who's struggling, who does not want to go Google and do the research. So when we put together this whole idea in my head, I reached out to a buddy of mine who's a doctor at Harvard, and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he goes, you're absolutely on point. I said, well, okay, I'm on point. What do you think? He's like, we got to do something about it. It's like, got it. I had come up with an idea 8 years ago to base jump all 7 continents in 7 days, just for fun. It was going to be A couple of my teammates and I like, hey, let's just go raise some capital and let's just go have fun. And it was in 1 year.
So Ryan, let's pause there. For our listeners and viewers who don't know what base jumping is, explain what base jumping is to start with.
Yeah, base jumping is an acronym for Building Antenna Span Bridge Earth. And so jumping off of an inanimate object with one parachute system, you don't have time for a secondary, risking it all, seriously insane, the most primal sport I think you can do. It's legendary.
Okay, so that's a base jump. And your vision 8 years ago was to do 7 base jumps in 7 days?
No, we're going to do 7 base jumps. We're going to do 1 base jump on each continent in 1 year.
Oh, okay, that was your original vision. Okay, got it. All right, got it. All right.
And so it was
still
just
pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Never been done. And I was like, this would be, but it was for us. It was not a public thing. It was
got
just
it. And did you guys do it?
We did not, because we, at that point in time, Sons of the Flag was taking priority.
Got it.
And so I just shelved it. When I came up with this idea for this human performance project, I was like, what could really turn people's heads? Because who cares about a stunt or an event? It's about what can we gain off of it? But how are we if we're not going to tell the world what we're doing, then how are we going to get them to purchase the manual to live with True North in mind?
Right.
So I brought that 7 concept back out of the shelf, and I said, you know what? Because this is physiological testing, the only way to really get there to get back from it is to break ourselves. So what if we were to not only skydive all 7 continents, but we were to run a full marathon on all 7 continents, and then we were to plunge or swim on all 7 continents in 7 days, and let's call it 7X.
Wow. And that was your vision when David passed away. This is sort of the catalyst for started making you hone down on what you were going to do.
Yeah, because of David's passing, this is the only reason that this project exists. And I'm going to be honest with you, I wish this project didn't exist, because there would be no other reason that I would ever come into moving this project the way it is forward without David's passing. So David is written all over this. David is leading us through this mission. And so I love that, because I want to keep David's name alive, but at the same time, I just wish he was here, and that was that. But we've got a long way to go. And so, 7X is 7 skydives, 7 full marathons, 7 plunges on 7 continents in 7 days.
Let's break it down. First of all, when is this actually happening? Today is January 2nd, 2023. This podcast will be airing in a couple of days. When is this event happening? And how do people get involved to support, to join, to just be involved with all the greatness that you're involved with in terms of the documentary that's going to be done, the democratization of information on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual growth that's going to be done, and everything else that you're planning here?
Yep. So we're January 2nd, like you said, February 14th this year. So
which is Valentine's Day now, by the way, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are going on the 7X deployment, which is we're going to take off from our prospective places and fly commercially to Cape Town, and then we'll stage to get on our airplane. And then that starts the deal. And so we are going to time it based off of when we get to Antarctica and we land on the ground, when we get up into the plane to do our skydive, when I leave the plane, that will trigger the time clock to start the 7-day window. And so then we have 168 hours to complete mission.
And you're the first man out of that plane.
It won't matter if I'm the first or not.
Okay.
Because we have videographer jumpers that are going to be going, but
Got it.
Honestly, it's just when I jump, and I want it to be that way too, because I'm probably the slowest and weakest athlete out of everybody we got. So
I doubt, by the way, I doubt that, but let's talk about that. How many operators are going from the cross disciplines that you just mentioned? How many civilians like me are going? And what's the cost to be involved, and what's the cost of support, et cetera? I want to get it all out there.
Sure. So we have a scientific team and a health or human performance team coming with us, and the support for that. So we have about 38 people on our side of the house going with us, and not every one of them are used for the scientific side, but the majority of them are. And then we also have some support for the other side of the house. This is how we funded this whole project. Was we made this whole thing available for people to join with us and become part of the tribe. And when we say become part of the tribe, we're not just saying, fund this, give us some money, and then you can come and be a bystander just watching this happen. No, we're going to kick your ass with us. It's going to be amazing. Do you want to live hard and be hard and do something hard? I want everybody who's been a benefactor of this project to leave this project feeling like they truly gain something in their heart and soul for them, not just for others. All right. And so we've been funding this by selling seats on the plane for people to go on the experience of a lifetime. They are not required to do the marathons. In fact, we were not going to let them do the marathons unless they are a true marathon and current marathon runner. They get at least a mile. They can do a 5K on each continent. They get super unique package deals on each location that are experiential, that are not touristy cookie cutter. We deployed a team of Green Berets around the world earlier this year to go set these things up from the good old boy networks that we have. So it's not like you can go in and get access. You could pay $500,000 and still never do what we're doing. Right. And so we've set it up for a VIP to come with us. The seat is $100,000, and that's all inclusive. So from the time that you get on our plane to the time that we finish in Dallas, Texas, food, sleep, everything that we do is completely covered.
That is literally the most unbelievable bargain for this kind of life-changing experience I've ever heard in my life. It's just incredible. How many VIPs are going, or how many people have bought those seats? How many do you have left?
So we have 40 seats available, and we've sold 34 seats right now. So we have 6 seats available.
Wow. Yeah. Well, for our listeners and viewers who want to join and want to learn more, and learn more what Ryan is doing, you go to americanextreme.com. Let's unpack the whole journey. So you're starting in Antarctica. You fly down to Cape Town. You get on the chartered plane, and you get down to Antarctica. You guys jump out of the plane. Now, where are you going from there? Go through the 7 and walk us through this.
Certainly. So we're going to a very, very, it's the most exclusive place in Antarctica. It's called White Desert, and it's very expensive to go there. And they have done an incredible job of making this place. It literally looks like Mars on a marshmallow. It is crazy. They've got pods set up. They got a full staff. You can eat, you can do skydiving, you can do all kinds of stuff there. It is insane. So they spent a lot of money putting this together. And again, we're taking an Airbus A340-300, so it's a 400-seater airplane all to ourselves. It's massive overkill for what we need, but it'll get the job done, and it's the safest.
So the operators and the VIP. So there's all in all, how many people are on this journey together? About
80 to 85.
80, 85. Got it. And that includes support and everything else along the way. Got it. So, starting in Antarctica, let's keep going on the journey here.
So we get to Antarctica. The first thing we do is we're going to actually acclimatize for a second as much as you can. And then the jump team, and this is not just the test subjects that are going to be doing this. This is also our professional athletes that are safety advisors and jumping as well. So we have a battery of guys that are going to be jumping. And so we'll get loaded in the plane, and then we're going to skydive. When we land, we've already started the 168 hours, and then we start our run. During the first portion of the run, all the VIPs are encouraged to come run with us, because who doesn't want to at least log a mile or two in Antarctica? We'll be running around an ice runway. There is no runway there, it's ice. So we're landing a humongous big bird on ice. It's crazy.
Wait a second. Do the VIPs also get to do tandem jumps with the operators as well if they want?
Not in Antarctica.
Oh, not in okay. I didn't know. Okay.
Antarctica, the winds and all that, it's a little shifty. So
okay, got it. That's not where the tandem. Okay, so it's a run, and it's getting to see one of the most unique places on this whole planet, like nobody else.
And then they get to go do something unique. So they're actually going to go mountaineering and ice rock climbing.
Oh.
While we're doing the final piece of our marathon, because nobody wants to sit there and watch a marathon run. That's like, oh my gosh. Right. So they go to this experience of a lifetime. They're going to have wonderful chow. They're legitimately going to dine in Antarctica with ease. And then I put in the contract for the VIPs. The only thing I require of everybody, besides have a good attitude, is you're going to ice plunge. So you're going to cold plunge in Antarctica, because I want everybody to get a picture of them in the ice in Antarctica, because they will look at that forever, put it up on their wall and say, I did this.
That's the smartest. That's so brilliant. I mean, you're not only obviously a great operator, but what a great, that's beautiful. I think that's just incredible. So from the Antarctica, where do you guys go next?
So right now we're going to be flying. So once we finish our full testing, we're going to get back on our plane. We're flying back to Cape Town to refuel, and then we're crossing up and over to Perth, Australia. And for the test subject side of the house, it's going to be wash, rinse, and repeat every single day. A jump followed by a marathon, followed by a plunge in the water. But when we start again, everybody will get their mile guaranteed so they can move. We have roughly 55 hours of flight time. So when we get out, we want people moving, and we're going to force that into this curriculum so that you're not just stagnant.
I assume the flight time is the rest and recovery period for everybody that's on this thing. There's not a lot of rest and recovery happening on the ground.
Correct. I mean, there's going to be there is some hotel and there is some sleep and all that factored into the 168 on different locations. So people, showers guaranteed every day, meals guaranteed every day, plus pure supplements, good supplementation to keep you driving and going. We will have alcoholic beverages for the non-athlete test subjects on the plane. We're also going to have poker tables on the plane. So in case people want to have fun and just enjoy these little activities. And there's a lot of business activity too, right? There's a lot of people in this who are going to be sharing and saying, oh, you do this, you do that. That's really cool. This is how a lot of guys are expensing it towards their companies and saying, oh, this is business opportunity, business development.
That's cool.
So, which is true. And I've met with each one of our VIPs too. And that's the biggest thing is like, do you have a good attitude? Because I hand selected each person on the team. I want to make sure that you're good to bring into this vibe. And I've already had to tell 2 people to pack sand. Their attitudes were just too egomaniac. And I'm like, you're not going to fit in well here. So just from a sociological point of view, out of the VIPs, the 40 that are coming, how many are men and how many are women? So we don't have any women that have purchased a seat yet.
Okay.
We do have 5, 6 women that are going with us on the team.
Got it.
The problem that I have is I know men. I know too many men. I don't know women.
Oh no, there's no problem. I just figured I'd ask. So now you get over you get to Perth, and so where it's rinse and repeat, rinse, wash, rinse and repeat every day. Where are you going after Perth?
Yeah, so I mean, the VIP experience though is they get we've partnered with our Australian SAS special operations counterparts, so they're getting an exclusive tour of the Australian SAS museum, which they don't open the doors. I mean, this is super, super cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so we wanted to make it something where at the end of 7X, when your buddy says to you the week after, "Hey, what'd you do last week?" and you're like, I don't know. How do you explain? How much time do you have? So
every day, it sounds like every day is going to be an experience that they can literally talk about singularly for the rest of their life. Nonetheless, putting 7 of them together in 7 days.
That's exactly right. That's what this is, a bucket list item times 7, insane. Right. And on top of that, we've put in a 30-minute section on each continent to basically ask you to shut your cell phones down. For 30 minutes, you're going to be present in nature and see the reality and the beauty of how awesome we are living. So once we get done with Perth, then we're going to cruise to Dubai. So it'll be really neat, really unique. The experience there, they have a battery of things that they're lined up right now. There's some indoor skiing and snowboarding, and then there's also having dinner at the Burj Al Arab. Apparently there's a dinner underwater, which is unique. And then I believe that they're already sectioned off too for, there's the deepest pool in the world to dive. So it's a plethora of things to go do that are very unique. And so again, for us, the same thing. This one, we might be able to base jump as well. We're working on it right now, but this one would be the Princess Tower, which is a huge tower right adjacent to the beach. Yep. And it would just be another unique thing to study because base jumping is much more dangerous and much more gut-wrenching than a skydive. So can we capture that information, the heart rate variability and all these things, and understand, what is this doing for us, fight or flight? So once we do Dubai, then we'll cruise to Cairo. And in Cairo, this is where our VIPs get a tandem skydive over the pyramids, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Wow.
Like jumping over one of the 7 wonders of the world.
Come on.
I mean,
that just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
Happen. You can live a lot of lifetimes and that's just not happening.
That's right. And then they'll get a walk through the pyramids, of course, because you can't not go there and not touch the Sphinx, or at least see the Sphinx and then go check out the pyramids. So going to get that. And we're working on maybe some camel riding. Then we shoot on up to London, and London is very exciting. I'm so sad that I don't get to participate in this one, because when everybody else is having the fun after we've completed marathon, we're sleeping and we're fueling and sleeping. So, but they have this thing called the Beef Eaters Dinner, where it's, I believe, in the London Tower. It's this very exclusive group that gets together. It's invite only. You have to wear a suit and tie like James Bond, and you have this wonderful place you go to have cocktails and eat an incredible meal and just dial it down but feel professional. It's really neat. It's like, I'm all about James Bond. That's like my thing. So the fact that I'm missing this in London pisses me off.
Well,
but,
why are you missing it? I didn't get that. Why are you missing this?
I mean, we'll be at marathon 5 at that point.
Oh, yeah. You're missing this. Yeah, you got to rest up. Which I want to go back to. After we talk about the VIP experience, I want to go back to your experience on this. Keep going. After London, so what happens after London then?
Then we cruise all the way down to Cartagena, Colombia, so South America. Beautiful place. We're going out to a place called Old Town out there. So really get within the old school side of the house, because we're not going out there for the fancy resorts and that. We're going out there for the experiential. Like, this is Colombia. This is the place. And so we're going to run around town. There's going to be activities. Right now we're working on something private with the Colombian Navy for our VIPs to do. And then we shoot on up for our final stunt to 7, which would be Dallas, Texas, just outside of Dallas. That'll be our close. There's a small little tiny, they call it a lake, but it's a pond. And that's where we'll end up doing our run in that. We'll park everybody at hotels. And I'm not going to release what the VIPs are going to do in Dallas, but it's going to be very unique. And they'll feel like they've actually done something challenging. But also the thing is, like, people have asked several times with VIPs, you don't have to be in any specific shape in order to do these challenges. That's the key. We're not asking you to do full marathons. So you can have fun and enjoy and know that whatever opportunity you're going to come up, you can actually do. The last thing I'll say about the experiential side of the house is we have factored in, which we actually sold a seat based off of this alone. When we are finished with Antarctica before we leave, we have guaranteed block time for a snowball fight against special operators. So should be awesome.
So now let's just go over some of the macro details that are important still. 501c3, this is a full write-off for anyone who writes a check to this, whether it's their company or whether it's personal, they get a write-off here.
That's right. Yep. The seat costs $100,000 and it's a full write-off to a 501c3. And we have a website called join7x.com. Okay. And that is the experiential treatment. And if you sign up in there, it'll go directly to me, and then I'll respond to you to get you started.
Got it. Join7x.com. AmericanExtreme.com also is your website. What's going to happen to this great organization post this journey? What do you expect what are some of the great benefits besides that manual that you're going to be putting together? And also this is going to be made into a documentary film as well. What's going to be the long-term benefits with the Human Performance Project and the American Extreme and everything you're going to be doing post this? And by the way, how old are you, Ryan?
I'm 39.
Oh my God. It's incredible what you've accomplished and to be such a young man. So, obviously you got runway, so many decades of life ahead of you, God willing, 100 years of life ahead of you. What's your intent and what's your mission and goal post this great event coming up that starts on February 14th?
The ultimate goal personally for me is, one, making the manual. And that's why going to 7 continents exposes that to all 7. Obviously, Antarctica is a little different scenario, but to get as many manuals as we can sold, because it's going to only better that person that has the copy of it. And 100% of the net proceeds from the manual will go to the charities that we are supporting on this whole project in perpetuity. So it's about continually feeding them as opposed to giving them a one-time deal and then they have to go continually fundraise. Every time a manual is sold, money is going to be dispersed to these causes. And that's the goal, is in perpetuity, continue to fund these missions so that they can continue to help the greater good. Ultimate goal with human performance as a whole, we can continue to add to it. We're always going to focus on the basics. And so we don't need to come up with these extraordinarily lavish things like, this is a new way to do this workout or whatever. It's about focusing on the basics and fine-tuning those basics. That's how you become elite, right? And so taking this information and then talking with the government about implementing it into the military training as a human performance training block, getting it into the first responder communities as a human performance training block, And then ultimately my big goal would be education system.
How long in your mind today? I know everything doesn't work out perfectly because perfect doesn't exist on this planet. But on a whiteboard, when you're planning everything, post the journey, when does the manual come out? 6 months, a year, 2 years after the journey? When does that manual get published?
Goal is 2023. So end of the year. We're not sure if it's third, fourth quarter. That's our goal. But we're not 100% certain yet. We are starting to put the outlines together right now, so that, and getting the correct writers, ghostwriters in to help with that implementation, because it's got to read clear. It's got to read clean.
And does it coincide with the release of the documentary, or are those separate?
We consider the release of the documentary our marketing opportunity and marketing arm for the manual. So the manual will be ready to go when that documentary comes out. They explain it.
So you're 39 years old. You've done a whole shit ton, excuse my French, of difficult things in your life. Level of difficulty of this, physically, mentally, emotionally, for the folks like you who are actually going to be doing this, all the marathons, the base jumps, the plunges, everything. What level of difficulty here?
The challenge is difficult, really difficult. I have a broken tibia right now. So running, I ran a full marathon yesterday, and it's not fun. But this project to me is not supposed to be fun. This project to me is to really gain some answers and kind of get myself back in the seat of wearing the uniform, because we just continually keep losing. I just lost another teammate a week and a half ago to suicide. It's all over the news. And
SEAL Team 7 teammate?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the new incoming commanding officer of SEAL Team 1. And
Jeez.
it's just, so it's supposed to be painful. This is supposed to be hard. Everything that's worth it is supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be easy. It's been brutal this year. I mean, the fact is, we're trying to raise capital in a time where people are truly starting to see the economic, outcomes of what COVID has done. And so that's difficult. And then I've dealt with a lot of people who just don't keep their word. And so I'm out. Having to chase people down and dealing with people is always a unique thing. So it's been very difficult this year to try to not only be an athlete test subject and train all these miles and put all this stuff together, but then at the same time raise this capital and ensure that we are doing this. And so that has been really brutal. But I know at the end of the day, when we get back February 23rd to Dallas, I'm just going to have a lot of love in my heart, because I know that all the struggles and all the tough times this year and last year was all because of this, and we're going to have a solid outcome.
About a year ago or so, I had one of the leading experts on the use of, and I'm not a scientist, the use of microdosing to help people mentally recover from their trauma. Is that actually making a dent in veteran affairs, or has it not even come down yet to that level of veterans getting the opportunity to take advantage of all the years of study on microdosing and the ability to help people unwind some of their horrific trauma?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, as far as any kind of psilocybin or any kind of psychedelic medicine, I mean, there's a difference between medicine and recreational drugs.
Yeah.
The way that it's used. And we've seen tremendous gains from guys going to do these treatments to de-stressing themselves. And there's certain stressors that are just a norm, right? Like in any day, I have 2 young children. My 2 boys, they're 100 miles an hour all the time, and they want to fight each other all the time. And that's a stressor that is just a constant.
Right.
But it's not a stressor where I'm dealing with my life here.
Right.
So the veteran community has gone through that. I actually went through a psychedelic treatment in October in New Mexico, and it was life-changing. It does. It helps you. It doesn't fix your issues, but what it does is it helps you reset. So I want to start from scratch. I want to go moving forward, and I need that help because I'm carrying too much burden right now. So that's fantastic. The microdosing stuff, I'm 100% in on doing it. Waiting for stuff to come in so that I can start testing it, because I am going to be a complete test subject for anything I can do to help the veteran first responder communities. And I always say that stuff, but it's all about humanity. Like, if you're a person who's struggling, it doesn't matter what uniform or shirt you wore. If you're struggling, you're struggling, and struggles are real across the board. So if there's opportunities or a medical medicine here, like, we got to go away from the stigmas. This stuff's wrong and it's unacceptable. It's God's gift to the earth. Everything that was planted in this earth and on this earth was built by God from God. And if we use it in the correct way, could truly help the outcome of our life. And so I don't hold anything back. I certainly don't say that, no, that's not right because it's considered a drug. No, I consider it medicine. And I don't drink. I don't do recreational drugs. I'm trying to get rid of any kind of habit that I have, like bad habit or whatnot. I chewed tobacco for a long time, quit that. That was brutal, by the way, because I love chewing tobacco. And there's so many different things we can do to make ourselves, like, get habits and good habits, like invest in your health, in your life. You have one of them. You only get one option, one time to do it. So why don't you fuel your body correctly?
I'm so glad you shared your own personal experience with microdosing. I believe, in the show notes, of course, we'll put suicide prevention hotlines. I believe the new number in the United States is 988, if I'm not mistaken. And
it very well may be.
Yeah. So, and I'll make sure we put in our show notes. If anyone is considering suicide, obviously it's not the way to go. And we'll put some great resources in our show notes to help people. And what you're doing is just amazing. Talk a little bit about base jumping, level of difficulty to learn how to base jump. Obviously, you're an elite of the elite, but how about for just civilians in terms of base jumping? How difficult is this, and what you're doing?
Well, I mean, so I actually asked the elite of the elite base jumpers to join us on this team because I wanted them from a safety perspective, and I love them. They're great people. Yeah. And every one of them were like, we're in. And so it's insane. So base jumping is the easy. This is what my buddy Doug says. It's hilarious. He goes, base jumping is the easiest sport in the world until it goes wrong. And so that's the clue. You have to have a minimum of 200 skydives in order to get into any type of base jumping course.
Wow. And
they want you to have the understanding of discipline, the emergency procedures of a canopy. They also want you to understand canopy characteristics, how to fly it, how to land it, because you need to land in small areas. Once you start to get to that point, then you can start going and pay the money to go through a first base jump course. And two of our guys on the team run the two best in the country, in the world, actually. And so once you go through that, then it's a progression. It's on you. It's big boy rules, big girl rules. So I've gone up to exit points before that are known exit points to jump. And I just had a weird feeling in my stomach. Something just didn't feel right. And I was like, I'm not feeling right now. I'm going to just walk back down this 2-hour hike back down, as opposed to jump and have a 10-second ride and get on the ground easily and right back at the car, because it just didn't feel right. And it's called big boy, big girl rules. And you know what? There's no problems with it. You have to man or woman up and say, I'm going to make the call today, because that could be your life. You don't mess around with this stuff now more than ever, because I have children. I don't base jump nearly as much as I used to. Right. But you have to think about these scenarios. And so I put an error box around everything I do mathematically. So if we're jumping from 200 feet and I feel like my go-to is 200 feet, maybe I'm going to jump from 250. Maybe I'm going to jump from 270. Just so I give myself an air box, a window of time mathematically. It's insane. When things go wrong, it becomes the most primal thing in the world, because you have to fix it quick and get out of that scenario to save your life. The other side to base jumping, though, is you go to the most beautiful places in the world to do it. It's not legal in most places in this country. So you got to go to Switzerland, and you got to go to Sweden and Norway and France and all the, it's just twist my arm. Beautiful. And then the people are unique. They're very unique. And they cherish your life too, so they don't want you to make bad decisions. So from that perspective, it's just such a cool thing.
Listen, running 7 marathons in 7 days is, I know we talked about them earlier before we even got on the air, is something out of the next level Rich Roll time on steroids type stuff. But I mean, on a broken tibia, I mean, I can't even imagine what, mentally even getting up for that, nonetheless getting through the day by day of that. I mean, how do you prepare mentally and emotionally for what's already going to be uncomfortable if you were in perfect healthy shape, but the dings and dongs that you get in training and a broken tibia is obviously a little bit of worst case planning. How do you prepare emotionally and mentally and for something for that, like that, before you get on February 14th?
So I'm not looking at this as it's got to happen. It's got to be finished. For me, I'm going back into that same mentality I had for Hell Week, and I'm going all in. I'm giving everything. Yeah. And we're going to see what happens. But if my bone breaks, because it's a hairline fracture.
Right, got it.
If it breaks, there are several other athletes that are going to continue on. And it goes back to being a man, It sucks. Yep, you finish.
What an attitude, man. Listen, we could spend hours more today. I know you're doing the documentary, the in memoriam for David Metcalf today, David R. Metcalf. So I don't want to take any more of your precious time today, but this has been beyond an honor to have you on today, Ryan. And I want our listeners and viewers again to support everything you're up to. sonsoftheflag.org. You can buy also Ryan's great book, Sons of the Flag, Real Accounts from the Last 100 Years of American Service. Besides American Extremes, talk about that direct email that goes to you if people want to sign up and become one of the last 6 VIPs that join this incredible mission.
Yeah, go to join7x.com and it'll go directly to me. At the bottom of it is four little places to fill out your information. It sends to me, and then we'll have a conversation. I will call you right after it comes in too.
Wow.
Because we don't have much time left to get you slated for clearances for all 7 continents and that. But this is an opportunity of a lifetime, a once-in-a-lifetime deal. You don't want to miss it if you can afford it.
Ryan Birdman Parrott, first of all, thank you for your service. You are a great American hero, and thank you for making the world a better place every day of your life. Thanks again for today.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by CO2.com. Companies today are trying to figure out how to achieve high-quality climate credentials. CO2.com is the easy button for any business to go beyond offsetting and fund truly impactful projects across carbon, nature, and community. CO2 provides verified metrics that can be used in reporting and messaging. Have confidence in demonstrating your climate leadership. Go to CO2.com to access quality climate credentials you can trust on the road to net zero and nature positive.